As we bask in the full moon energy in Leo, intense emotions, a rising of the true self, and deep courage can start to break through, stronger than ever before. Open your ears, your heart, and your minds as Lonna joins us again and brings us up to speed on the energy forecast for the next few weeks. She's also suggested some wonderfully healing tones to help us and guide us to shift these shadow blocks, this tension, any anger or suppressed frustration, and help us in finding our deepest healing power. And we finally revealed what we've been very eager to talk about for so long. Oh, I hope you enjoyed this podcast because it's a mind opener. I'd love to hear your comments and feedback. Of course, we both would. And I'd be so overly grateful if you could rate this podcast so then it can be suggested to other people. And maybe send it to anyone you think might benefit from it. Thank you so much and enjoy. Hi, Lola.
Hi, Sarah. How are you?
I'm great. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me again.
It's like we're a team now. This your
We are a team.
podcast too.
I love this because our energies are so different. So I love that I don't know, it just feels like a beautiful marrying of energies. I love it. It's
Yeah,
great.
definitely. Tell me your energy forecast for this full moon.
Woo, we are in Leo. Which, Leo, I'm a Leo ascendant, so I understand the energy very well. So we have a very interesting 2 weeks kind of coming up, and Leo is at the forefront, and we have a lot, like, again, we got the Pluto and Aquarius energy, we got Saturn in there governing things, and Saturn's the taskmaster, the one that keeps us disciplined and on point. So there's a lot of mixing of energies coming forward, but essentially what we're looking at for the next 2 weeks is it's a time that's initiating a self-rising, I guess you can say. And Leo is all about standing in your power, having the courage to speak your truth. And there's this regal, royal energy to that. So it's almost embodying our divine sovereign state, but making it manifest in the physical. So essentially, which is like a culmination and empowerment of your personal truth, self-knowledge, sobriety and courage, authenticity. It's pulling up the true self, and it's spotlighting on our inner power, which manifests in an outward way. So it's really, really asking us to really look at pretty much all the things. Again, we talk about this on every podcast, looking at all the things you don't want to see, because I'm a shadow worker, so everything comes back to that. But this is really the next 2 weeks we are going to be what's coming to me is a diamond, which, diamonds are forged like under immense pressure and heat, and they're refined in that energetic, and they're refined in essentially the conflict. So over the next 2 weeks, we're going to have a lot of potential conflict and pressure to rise. Yet it's a push we need to heal and to find like harmonization of our inner and outer experience. And most importantly, to create. Like, Leo is very much about the childlike wonder, the curiosity, the play. And it's going to be about bridging the balance for the next 2 weeks. Like, everything's seeking a balance, but we are integrating a higher level of integrity in our dealings, and we are being forced to kind of connect to that true north of self, to really be like, where are we moving in the world? What are we moving towards? And what's in the way of that? So a part of that is operating from humility and honoring of the gifts and skill sets of ourself, but finding the balance of honoring others. And there's a deep karmic collective wound with that happening right now. Everybody's going through that in some way. And this is not always an easy or comfortable process, really, when we're meant to look at those aspects of self that are difficult to look at, and the parts where, again, we push them aside, or they have been instilled in need of protection or security at some point, but are no longer really you operating from your highest divine self. So we're pulling up anything within us that has blocked us or diminished our alignment with integrity. That's been an issue in the past. And this includes uncomfortable truths or truths that perhaps we've been avoiding due to the necessary change that comes with it. So it's almost a time of reckoning, if you will, reckoning with self, reckoning with the beings around us and the way that we're maneuvering and operating in the world, kind of like the snake. We're moving around the obstacles, but we're kind of letting them go in that process. And that's going to add any tension to anything in our lives that's been under pressure or like in the pressure cooker, essentially. And it's potentially leading us to this snapping or breaking point, in conflict with ourselves, with others, anything that's not in alignment. And this can include like emotional attachments in relationships, attachments to outdated belief systems, and even like addictions in the physical, addictions in the mental, emotional, spiritual spaces. Some beings even attach a lot to their spirituality and bypass actually doing the work in the physical. And it's finding that bridge between connecting to our spiritual self, looking at the things that no longer serve, and being willing to kind of do the difficult work, whether that's letting go of relationships, letting go of patternings, letting go of elements of self that are just dimming our light, that's dimming that true honoring of self. And this can also include like secrets coming to light, things that were hidden, things that were in the shadows. And that could be secrets that you weren't willing to really look at yourself, or secrets from other people. And we really have to be willing to acknowledge the things that were shown, and acknowledge, like looking at someone being like, they can't possibly do that, or why would they do that? But they are doing that. And it's like, it's very there for us to see at this point. And these emotional breakdowns or conflicts, is a catalyst to create like a disillusion of like what no longer serves our highest good or timeline. And it's a time to stand in your integrity and to claim your freedom from the past limitations and humbly build from that strength. Humility is a huge aspect of integrating integrity, and trusting that what's happening is a necessary part of that reclaiming of your divine in the physical, and is creating a new way forward that builds upon, your inner wisdom and strength, and releasing of the chaotic, pressurized energy that's related to truth and humility and integrity. And we have Chiron coming into to transmute like our wounds and our worries into like a power path, essentially, strength that's aligned to personal power and healing. And when we have these contrasting energies, they're there for us to find the bridge between the absence of something actually allows us to value what we're missing. So the absence of something makes us honor it, and vice versa. It's like a spectrum, what you can't appreciate the light without the dark, without the trials, without the tribulations. And it allows for an appreciation and a desire to find what you do want to give energy to, love, community, the co-creation, unity energy, which is what we're moving towards in, the way towards the new world. And self-healing is the awakening to your own true wisdom, your soul wisdom, the parts of self that we're calling back in, the parts of self that are about integrating our full divinity. And this propels us forward to be in the world in a way that like transmutes the chaos, which is so evidently around us, driving us. And really the cliche of be the change you want to see in the world, that's exactly what's being asked of us in this time, because it's about actioning. It's about truly looking at those aspects and igniting a fire of strength and power and wisdom of self. Like that is Leo, that is the lion, that is the ferocious energy of standing in your fire element, and also honoring of those parts. And another aspect of the next couple weeks is also, I know everybody talks about, and we do too, the inner child, but we also have an inner parent. And that's also when Saturn kind of comes into play as well. And right now we're activating the inner parent self, which is the wise and capable, the responsible, supportive, giving, and self-sufficient aspect of ourselves. And we're essentially being asked to reparent ourselves. And that's directly related to our emotional childlike side of us that was kind of wounded in childhood and needs healing or safety or support. And when these wounds and traumas are activated, that's when our inner parent comes forth. And their role is called upon to help protect what's sacred in our life and to plan the next steps and to support our emotional needs. And what we're meant for at this time is to rediscover kind of like what truly motivates and moves us, what drives us, what is that passion? Because Leo represents passion. And it's about balancing the integrity, the humility, being humble, and rediscovering these parts of self so we can direct this more assertive energy in the most positive and productive ways. Leo's all about the heart of the lion. Like, let it lead the way. Let your heart be the one leading the way. And in this chaos, in this crazy time of confusion and chaos that's around us, we need to find the play, find that childlike wonderment, the curiosity, and that will be the honestly the most biggest transmutation tool that we have is really in like transmuting the intensity of these energies and focusing on awakening to our true purpose, why we are here, what is our mission in this lifetime, what is it that we're seeking, what is it that if we were on our deathbed today, when we look back at our life, like what would we be in regret that we didn't accomplish, that we didn't give energy to. And it's about reconnecting to spirit and also confronting those illusions and the discrepancy between what we want to believe and what's actually happening around us. Living in a world of confusion and chaos is one thing, but if you know self, if you honor self and you understand what you are doing, the chaos around you doesn't touch you as much. And you balance that idealism with, your creative aspect of self. And the collective is craving for harmony. We're craving for harmony because of the chaos around us. So we create that harmony within self, which therefore ripples out into the collective. And it's a time of finding that almost creative renaissance of self and pulling in the parts of self that we are trying to see in the world truly. Like, what is it that we're here to do? Are the people around us aligned to what it is that we're trying to do? And if they're not, be willing to allow the conflicts that will be arising over the next couple of weeks to show you what that looks like, and then decide for yourself kind of what you're integrating in. But that's what's going on.
I can almost feel the conflict bubbling up already. It's like there's an anger starting to simmer and it's coming out.
Absolutely. We were just talking about this before we got on the call, and I'm like, how are you today? How are you today? I don't know. I personally am feeling a little prickly today. I can definitely see the conflict arising in my life, and I mean, I'm allowing it to be what it is, and I'm not trying to control what it is. I'm just being like, okay, this is interesting. And it's like, how do we interplay with that confusion? How do we interplay with the discord? Because there will be discordant energies. You can feel it, I can feel it. I'm sure everybody listening to this is going to feel it. And we can really look at this as an opportunity to be like, where are we uncomfortable? Like, where's the conflict here? What's my part in it? And how did I contribute to that? Because that's the part of humility, is being able to own your role in how you contributed to this conflict, but also how you didn't. And did you bring this into your life to see something to make a change? Probably. Because I think what we're really looking at is how do we shift that going forward? And we are not in a time anymore of turning a blind eye or I will do it tomorrow. Those times are gone. We don't have the luxury of that time anymore. And the more that we work with the energies around us, the more that we allow things to fall off or be shown to us, the more we can kind of let it just fall away. Nobody wants confusion and chaos going on. I mean, it doesn't feel comfortable, but that is one of the most beautiful teachers. And again, my guides are showing me the diamond, because it's like the diamond is it's really, it's in a pressure cooker situation, which is exactly energetically what's going on right now. And like, the most beautiful balanced aspects of self, the refined component of self, comes through trial and tribulation and difficulty. That's how we become stronger. That's how we stand in our power. That's how we know what we're passionate about. Oh, I just got goosebumps. My guides are like, yeah. My lion guide is like, yeah, like ferociously, yeah, roaring right now. It's wow, that was a lot of goosebumps. Thank you for that beautiful confirmation. But yeah, it's like it's the roar, like it's roaring in my ear right now. It's like, yes, like be willing to humble yourself and take your role in that, but also let it go, because it's there to show you but not hold. That's the message right now, because everything coming up right now is shadow, shadow, shadow. And the shadow is there so we can shine the light on it and release it. And
Yeah.
when we do that, when we transmute and alchemize that power into self-empowerment, not giving our power away, taking our power back, then no one has power over you.
Yeah.
Circumstances come and go, things happen in your life, and no one has power over you but your inner authority and your divine sovereign state of self, which will ripple out to everybody else who is struggling maybe with standing in their power and struggling with understanding, like, okay, this is the time, because this is the time. This is absolutely the time to kind of raise your sword, to cut away the lies and the deceptions of self, to cut away what is keeping us contained. We're meant to be free and open and expansive. And the energies of the next 2 weeks are very, very, we got Saturn in there. We got Saturn in Pisces, which is all about our creative aspects, but having a detailed, kind of disciplined approach to our creativity. It's not this loosey goosey all over the place. It's like measured steps forward on how we are meant to create and put our creations out into the world as well. So it's a really interesting time. I've even come prepared today with offering some specific frequencies that can help us work through some of these energies to transmute. And of course, the 528 hertz and the 432 hertz, everybody knows about those. 528 is generally connected to the heart space, and it's more about healing and self-love. 432 is like the natural tuning of the universe. It's a natural harmonic vibration of self, peace and harmony and balance. But we also have 639 hertz, which is really good for promoting healing within relationships. It clears emotional blockages and releases kind of limiting beliefs, and it helps to heal old wounds. It also helps with self-expression and self-assertion, which is all about Leo energy. And it helps also balance the desire of self with the desire of the collective needs. So what do I need and how does that balance? And there's going to be some confusion in the next couple of weeks about that. What do I want for self, and how does that balance with the people around me? And that's really important to remember, because we're going to be feeling it. So 417 hertz is the frequency of change, which helps clears negativity and also releasing a trauma. It helps to us to embrace fully the transformational process that we're in, the alchemization of self and our goals and our passions and our pursuit of self, and how that looks in the world, because the world is chaos. Like, it's not going to get easier. Just what's going on with the politics. It's like there's so many things that are calling for our attention to stand in fear and to be confused. There's so much confusion right now, and confusion is being bred deliberately to create the fear. And if everybody's watching the television and worrying about the tariffs being implemented and what's going on in the politics, and like, it is focusing our attention on all the things that is perpetuating the fear, as opposed to stepping back and taking that back for self. I'm not saying don't know what's going on in the world, but also don't get caught up in that energetic, because that's really, really feeding the confusion. And
I'm
741 hertz. Sorry, go ahead.
just one thing, sorry to interrupt you.
No,
Another
go ahead.
thing that people, that just made me want to say something. We can also pick up on the collective anger. And
Yes.
it's absolutely normal, but it can also trigger generational anger. That is a really good opportunity now to release, if it is generational anger, and if you're willing to go into that space, using one of those healing tones could be an absolute amplifier of healing energy that can clear generational anger basically throughout your country or your life or your family. And that might be a really good kind of lever. Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm so glad you brought that up because right now is and deep ancestral healing, deep ancestral healing is coming up. Collective karma, ancestral healing, bloodline healing. We absolutely are feeling anger because there's these times of change. There's been so many times in our history with our ancestors that have brought up similar cycles of change, and they didn't have the ability in those times to express the way that we do now and to heal and transmute that now. And I'm actually so glad you brought this up because generational trauma, ancestral trauma is very, very, very much part of the energies that we're working with and that are part of the collective karmic lessons that are happening and playing out on the world stage right now. That is actually we didn't even get into this before, but what's going on in the world now and the frequency shifts that we're moving towards, all of this is clearing the way for us to be able to embody that frequency shift at the time when that happens. And a large element of the collective shadow is ancestral and generational trauma. And it's up to us right now in this time and space. We all chose to incarnate at this time, and we all have priorities to heal our ancestral and generational trauma. And it's actually one of the things that I am focusing on. My work kind of keeps focusing more on that deep work. That's how I actually work with the dragons. They're here. The dragons are very present right now too. So call on them to stand in your personal power.
Yeah.
Because I know we're in the year of the snake, but the dragon hasn't gone anywhere, and they are so present, and they create and weave ways for us to see clearly and to stand in our power and to remove the external negative energetic. And honestly, dragon energy is very, very present right now for exactly that generational trauma and generational healing. And it's a time because we don't want to bring this energy into the new world. We don't want to have those kind of like limited viewpoints and pain points and things standing in the way. And frequency work is so profound for shifting. You don't even have to do anything. You can just lay there and put on a healing frequency and just have the intention to be like, I release. We don't even need to know what it is because most of the time we don't when it comes to ancestral or generational trauma. And it's deeply in our bloodlines. And let's be real, we are a time of change right now. Most of our family hasn't done this work. Most of the people listening to this podcast are the ones who are going to take on that energy and to work with that energy. And we can all do this. It's deeply part of our personal mission with our family and our ancestral lines. So I'm so glad you brought that up because that is always important, but it's becoming more and more important because those are deeply seated, rooted traumas and wounds that affect us and the collective on such a deep level. And there's so much intentional work, honestly, with the dragons, the angelic realm as well. We have so many beautiful teachers, our personal guides that can help us really really tap into that frequency. And sometimes it can be like, well, what am I dealing with? And sometimes we don't need to know. We're just holding it in our body. We're holding it in our energy field. And it's just like, it's heavy. It's heavy to hold that. And we want to feel lighter, and we want our family to feel lighter, and our bloodlines to feel lighter. And frequency work is a beautiful way of doing that. Breath work is really beautiful as well. And yeah, I highly recommend, and I'm so glad you brought that up. I actually really am, because I could talk about this all day. It's where my work and the clients coming to me are really focusing on. That is the deep work that really is so needed. So I could talk about this all day, but I'm so glad you brought that up.
And another thing is that I was listening to a podcast the other day. I don't know if you ever listened to Nancy Rebecca.
I
She's
don't know her, no.
she's an American psychic. I think she's a medium as well. And she was also talking about the healing generational secrets, because sometimes
Yes.
people carry secrets, their families carry secrets, their generations carry secrets, and they don't know what it is. And nobody
Hmm.
knows, but well, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but they don't need to know with the intention and the frequency that you just suggested. And, just sitting there with the intention for it to be cleared and transmuted and healed, like that's all it needs.
I'm so glad you said that too, because yeah, like this is the time of secrets rising. This is the time, like there will be a lot pulled up in this next little while. And I don't know, we haven't really talked. Fomalhaut is not a norm, like a well-known planet, but it's one of the four royal stars.
Mhm.
It's very much extremely connected divine frequency, which we are actually feeling very much more so in a week or so. It's not quite here yet, but it's going to have us coming from a higher understanding. It's going to have us connecting to our pure divinity, higher frequency, higher wisdom. The negative of that can also be a little bit of escapism, not wanting to really see and like living in this mystical space. But again, it's about finding that bridge. And this is where we're going to be seeing our addictions coming up, and where we are going to be like, oh, that's not serving me anymore. These patternings are not helping me anymore. And Fomalhaut is a powerhouse teacher for that. And mixed with Saturn, who's asking us to be disciplined, we're also moving into Venus, which is all about love and beauty and creation. And then we have Leo, who's just like the powerhouse. So there's a lot of like kind of not conflicting energies, but if we find the bridge between them, and we don't need to know everything that we're holding or healing. And we can't actually know with our ancestors and our generation. We can't know. And we don't need to, because I'm not going to say it's not ours. We knew in this lifetime we were taking this on, but also it's time to release. It's time to release it. It's time to let go. And we are moving into a new world, a new way of being. And there's just no place for these energies there. There just is no place. And that's why we're being asked to kind of excavate with the magnifying glass and pull it all up and
Yeah.
look at the conflict and the confusion that is being created from pulling all that up, because there is a beautiful lesson in all of that. Conflict is really just an intention to be willing to see and to move through something. And
Mm.
when we're not fearful of that, and when we can honor that, then we become so much lighter and embodied, and all our path forward just is like set in little seeds, next step, and you're just following that, because we need to be the light. We need to honor that light and not give energy to the fear space and the narratives that we're being programmed to believe. Deeper and deeper, the programming is being instilled, because we're getting closer and closer to that frequency shift,
Mhm.
and closer than we think, I think. It's hard to know when that's actually going to happen, but I'm feeling it closer and closer, because the timelines are moving quicker. And it's hard to actually give a definitive time frame, but the next 15 months or so are going to be just a lot of the energy that we're feeling now. The
Mhm.
chaos and the growth and the confusion and like the fear narrative is going to get more and more implemented, which is why these frequencies and these practices are so crucial. And we really have so much at our disposal to help us work through this.
Mhm.
So I want to give two more frequencies just before we move on from that, because I feel like
Yeah.
it's been crucial for me and my clients. And the 741 hertz is also the awakening frequency. So it promotes mental clarity, which really helps us see through the disillusion, see through what we're being fed and what we're being conditioned to think. And it promotes spiritual growth and releases toxic energy and emotional blocks, which helps us find that clarity. So that's a really good one as well. And then 392 hertz is really all about self empowerment. So again, releasing limiting beliefs, building that self love, that care for self, and then clears the doubts and fears of the confusion of what's going forward, because it is confusing. We don't know what's happening. We don't have a time frame for what's happening. We know something's happening. Everybody can feel it. Everyone can feel it. And it's confusing and it's heavy, especially right now. We're feeling this. And I'm the messages I've been getting is, January, February, or, a little easing in, but like come March, it's like it's just going to just tenfold into the confusion and chaos. So it's so important that we anchor into self over this time frame. So again, we're anchored and we're not on those, like, we got some choppy waters ahead. There's no way around it, but it's like, how are you going to steady the boat? How
Yeah.
are you going to find that the flow within the waves and be like, all right, I'm in this sea of chaos, but like, do I have my life jacket on, and like, do I have my safety paddles just in case I gotta do a little more work to get to shore, like,
Just get your tornado hat.
yeah.
Seriously. The one who laughs the most will literally win, though, because what
Yes.
can we do?
We can do the self work, but that's all we can do.
Yeah.
And you got to laugh about it, though. It's so good, Sarah, that you said that. And like, Leo is all about childlike play. It's like, yes, they are the royal, the regal, the leader. They're all about leadership. But like right now, we're being called to lead our own life,
Yeah.
not give the power externally, not look outside of ourselves for that power and the fear and all that. We're looking internally. And that's the year of the snake, like we talked about last podcast. This whole year is going to be upheavals and, ups and downs. And like, we are in choppy waters, and we will find, a nice little pass. And like, but some will be rapids, some will be going down big slopes, or some will be a nice little river run. Like, there's going to be ups and downs. And the more we can like just ride the wave and be like, I'm solid in self. And, but also, like we were talking about before we started recording, like, own your anger. I feel
Yeah.
prickly today. It's just what it is. Like, on a whole, I'm actually really good. There's really beautiful things transpiring in my
Yeah.
life. And I'm seeing, when I take the veil away, the bigger picture of what's coming. But there's also this impatience where I'm like, all right, let's go. Like, I'm ready to go. Like, let's do this. But it's like, it's also like, okay, just flow. Just
Yeah.
flow, like, whatever's coming is coming. But I'm like, I want to be at the destination, and I'm feeling this unnerving kind of impatient energy. But that's just fire. That's just fire I need to like channel into something else and
Yeah.
transmute something. And but we're okay to feel angry or feel
Yeah.
upset or feel hurt or feel sad. Like, life throws us some shit sometimes, and it's just, that's okay. If we're not running from it, we're not trying to not see it, we're just like, this is what it is. And again,
Yeah.
not attaching good or bad, just being like, what's the lesson here? What can I learn from this so I don't bring this in again? And again, we are completely restructuring our lives, the way we move forward, our support system. Since
Mhm.
being back in Canada, for me, it's been 8 months now, and my entire life is different. Most of the friends that I've had for 25 plus years are just fallen off. Like, some friendships I thought I would have forever, there's just a dissonance. And
Mhm.
that's hard, and it's loss, but it's also opening myself up to beautiful things that are more in alignment and that are where I'm at now in my journey and in my process. And an honoring and a love for what was is beautiful, but also making way for what's coming.
Yeah.
And that's also a beautiful process. Like, destruction hurts, but it's beautiful when you can recognize what it's going to give you in return. So
Yeah.
just honoring of those processes in our life and making space for the things that are in resonance and are meant to be coming in, and not
Mhm.
clinging to old ways. Like, we can't hold on to things that are no longer serving. That's a huge message, and why we're in this conflict, because
Yeah.
the chaos is there. That's not going anywhere for the time being. And I've been seeing some beautiful things, in all honesty, with this frequency shift coming, that I know there's a lot of fear around it, but I want to start talking about that more. And I want to start kind of acknowledging, like, yes, this is happening. There's no way around it. There will most likely, in every way I've seen it, will be 3 days of darkness where we will be entering a space where we will be with self. It'll be this calmness and this silence that just spreads over the earth in a way that there's no way we can't meet ourselves in this silence. It
Yeah.
is it is a place for us to look at ourselves and to really honor who we are, and to really come from heart and really, really see where we
Mhm.
are in the process of the whole. And the more we do to clear ourselves before this point, and how that looks, no one really knows, but we know it's happening, and we know that we're moving closer and closer to it. And talking about it dispels fear,
Mhm.
engaging in practices and things that we can do to take power over self and our experience. That's what Leo is about. That's what serpent's about. That's what dragon's about. That's like, we have so many beautiful energies that are here to help us understand what that looks like, because we're moving towards something that we can't possibly really know what that looks like until the
Yeah.
after effects of the absolute beauty in which we'll find ourselves on this earth, which is what we're moving towards. But in the process of that crumbling, it will be chaos, because chaos is needed for things to crumble.
Totally. For somebody who's listening who doesn't understand what the 3 days of darkness are, how would we describe that?
Let's get into it, Sarah. We've been like, when are we going to bring this up? When are we going to talk about this? So the 3 days of darkness are, I think most, I shouldn't say most, I can't even make that assumption. Most people in my sphere know about this, but the 3 days of darkness are essentially what we will be entering into when this frequency shift culminates into an actual point in the physical. So it's been prophesized in a lot of ways. We're shifting from, into a 5D consciousness. We are 3D. We live in a third dimensional existence, and we live and see via 3D. Our hearts themselves are always operating from a fifth dimensional frequency. And we are moving through fourth dimension, which we're actually in now, which is the astral, which is all about our emotions and our thoughts. And there's some darkness and shadow here, and we're seeing that reflected in the collective. But essentially, we're moving to the frequency of 5D, which on Earth will be integrating fully into our heart spaces in a way that it will eliminate a lot of the shadow stuff, a lot of the control, a lot of the fear. Our entire existence will be shifted into a different way of being, because right now we are operating from a shadow aspect of 3 and 4D. And we need to move through that, which is the self-work that we're doing now, to prepare for what's coming. And nobody really knows what's going to happen in these 3 days of darkness. But the 3 days of darkness are going to bring, it's pretty much going to bring a silence and a calm that the earth has never seen before. It's, from my understanding, will be a solar flash, which is relative. Everybody has a different idea of what that looks like. From my perspective and what I've been seeing recently, it actually is super beautiful. Like I've seen some visions of, at the moment that this is actually happening, there's essentially a flare from the sun. It's like it's an expulsion from the sun, but the sun represents divine consciousness. The sun represents pretty much connecting to pure wisdom. And this solar flash that comes out will essentially bring energetics down to earth that will shift us to a fifth dimensional frequency and operating from that space. What I have seen, and it's changing and shifts all the time because it's all part of the collective, but I believe we will see this flash coming towards us. And I believe that we will have a protective, it's almost like a bubble is what I see. It's a protective bubble that kind of comes out from our internal heart space and kind of surrounds our body and protects us from the physicality of what's to come from this solar flash, which is intense. It's hard to say kind of how that will look on the physical, but from what I've seen is the ones who are understanding and that are not coming from a fear space, that are just surrendering to this process, will have a protection, almost like a bubble-like thing come around them and over them that will help them be fully protected from the physical aspects of this solar flash. But within that bubble, I see just the most beautiful healing taking place. I see ailments in your body just like diminishing, diseases, issues that are going on in your body with like mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. I see a lot of that just dissipating as we activate to a higher frequency. And how this plays out, and I've kind of had like a little bit of a timeline, like when the flash first happens, I mean, we're letting go of the old, which means the way we're in now is fear-based. So there will be looting. There will be people who are in a fear space that are creating more fear space, that are going out and looting and coming from a lower vibrational experience. But somehow in this shifting time, that dissipates because there is a silence. There is an absolute silence that will come. and a stillness in the darkness, and you will be forced to meet yourself in that space, and you will be forced to either shift or not. How the not looks like, I don't know. I'm not really being shown that because that's not my timeline. But what I do see is discord and some issues at first, but that kind of phases out after the first little bit. And it's almost like you see the way it's being shown to me is almost like you snap, and it's like almost like you're waking up from like a hypnosis. You're waking up from being in a dream, almost operating from a space that you don't know, you no longer want to operate or will operate from. It's almost like, imagine two neighbors coming out and fighting over something, and then all of a sudden just kind of becoming aware, seeing each other from a heart. Whoa, I have goosebumps. Wow, that's good confirmation. Where there's just this shift of consciousness where they're just like, what are we fighting about? What are we fighting about? Like what's the important part here? Like, does this matter at all? And it's almost an instant recognition of soul to soul and heart to heart. And that is actually like the shift in a moment to a higher frequency. And I'm seeing it from a third perspective where I'm observing this happening. And it's literally like the veil is lifted instantly, and you're just operating from a higher frequency, because 5D is, there's no illusion, there's no ill intent, there's no manipulation. You are pure heart to heart. And this is why we're being asked to excavate all of our shadows, excavate everything that is keeping us kind of coming from that lower frequency. So when the shift does happen, we have less to clear. We have less that's fogging us down and holding us down. And we are already coming from that intentioned higher frequency. The more work we do prior to this frequency shift, the easier the shift will be. And I will be frank, not everybody will be operating from a fifth dimensional frequency after this shift. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how that looks. And I'm not here to create fear, not at all. But not everybody will, which is why it's really important to do the work, because who remains after this frequency shift will be creating the new world. And I don't like to say the new world, but like that's what it is. We are coming from a heart-centered fifth dimensional frequency, which is all about unity consciousness, which is what we keep talking about, and why it's happening in the age of Pluto and Aquarius. Pluto is the transformer. Pluto creates the death and the rebirth cycle. And this is the epitome of a rebirth. And this has never been done. I mean, we've had these shifts in history, but currently right now, it's never been done in this way. It's an experiment in some ways, but really the intention is to have as many beings awakened at that time so they can step fully into their divinity, into their sovereign state. And that's why I feel so crazy passionate about this, is being like, do the self work, please, because it's for your benefit, because nobody really knows what's going to happen in these 3 days of darkness. The natural progression of humanity, fighting and fear, that's also fighting and holding on to old ways. That's also directly showing us, what are we fighting about? And I think that's why I've been shown these moments where it's like this snap awake. I'm out of hypnosis. I'm awakened and I'm seeing with clarity. And I'm genuinely understanding from a higher perspective, from divinity, from a space that, what are we even fighting about? Let's come together. And like, it's probably over something ridiculous. Like, oh, like you mowed my lawn here. Like you did just something, like we nitpick little things when we don't know what the deeper aspect of our discomfort is. And when we can really see another individual with purity and clarity, if you ever are able to walk in another's shoes, you will always find compassion and love for them, because everybody has difficulty and everyone has things they're working on. And we all have so many goosebumps. I love this. So many beings. Yeah, I'm like, wow, there's so much confirmation from spirit right now, because they're just like, yes, like say it, like, because we've been kind of tiptoeing around talking about this. And I feel like the time for that is over, because it's like, okay, it's happening. We know it's happening. We've been known, it's happening for a long time, and we can't fully know what that looks like, but preparing ourselves for that and being as prepared with self is so necessary. And even just having this conversation, so when this happens and there are days of darkness, there isn't this fear space. There's this just surrendering to what is, because it's going to be so beautiful, like on a whole. And the Earth, this solar flare will come down to Earth. And the vision that I've had after this is I almost get teary-eyed thinking about it because it is so absolutely beautiful. Our
Mhm.
waters are, there's no more pollution in the air. There is like our waters are drinkable. Everything is cleansed and vibrating. Every blade of grass is in its highest form.
Mhm.
And it is like Eden. We have Eden. I've like this goosebumps this whole time. And it's just like it's beautiful what we're creating with that. And with this solar flash, I don't know exactly how that physically looks, but on an internal level, have candles in your house, have some things that you can eat, maybe cook on the fire, that kind of stuff. Like I would say start preparing because it could happen anytime. We don't know exactly when that's going to happen. And the message I've been getting, I always was seeing 2027 personally. But the timelines are speeding up, and that's why I don't like to give definitive timelines. But so that's all the more reason to just be as prepared as you possibly can for whenever that happens.
I know.
And
I'm like,
to
bring it on. I'm sick of this old
me
world.
too. Me too, sister. Me too. Because I'm like, I'm just waiting for it. I'm like, I'm so excited to be honest for this time because
Me too.
we are in chaos. Like we are just the shit show of what's going on in the world stage is just absolute insanity to me, to most people. And really, like it's just it's the crescendo of everything that will be gone. Like we don't need to fear this. We don't need to fear this because this is a part of the crumbling. This is a necessary part. It
Mhm.
will get crazier before this big, finale of whatever is to happen. But I'm with you. I can't wait for this to happen. I'm so excited to see how the earth looks, how the world comes together at this time. And this is when we're going to start seeing our unity consciousness put into play in our communities, in the way that we work. We'll be working differently. We're not doing these 9 to 5ers. A lot, if I'm honest, AI is going to take over a lot of the mundane jobs and aspects that humans are doing. And we'll be giving more energy to our creative pursuits and what lights us up and what we're here to do and to create and to show the world. And we're going to be meeting with like-minded beings and culminating and co-creating. And that is what we're supposed to be doing. And I can't wait for it. I'm so excited for it. And the more we understand, we don't have control over everything, but what we do have control over is how we react to what's
Yeah,
going on.
totally.
And that the 3 days of darkness, no one can really know, but and I know there's a lot of fear over that, and I just want to dispel that as much as I can. We never really can know, but again, we have complete control over how that looks for us and
Mhm.
our loved ones. I've also seen I've also seen beings who have this kind of bubble radiate out, and the more you're connecting to that energy and the more you're anchoring that in, I've also seen family members come into the bubble with you.
Yeah.
I live by myself, but so I don't know where I'm going to be or what time that will happen, but it's just like it's also a ripple out of like pulling people into that experience as well. And
Mhm.
it's just going to be like this like miraculous like immaculate conception of just birthing ourselves from the sun. Like it's just it's actually really really beautiful. And it's almost overwhelming when I see what the earth looks like. It is Eden. It is absolute Eden. It is what everybody thinks heaven would look like. We are
Mhm.
creating heaven on earth here. And when we are operating from 5D, there's no manipulation, there's no lying. There's You see clearly the other person's being and
Yeah.
who they are.
Mhm.
And that time is like, oh, I can't wait. So many can't wait for this time. And we need to just dispel the fear. I think that's the important part.
Yeah. Well, that's what we'll be talking about for the next few episodes anyway. Just,
Absolutely.
basking in acceptance and just accepting. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. How would you say bombshell? But it's the most, I suppose, fearless bombshell anybody could ever take on, because it's really it's kind of a push in the right direction for us to really work on ourselves more than ever before and get rid of that old repeating patterns, the anger that's bubbling up that you haven't been able to release, or the voice that you haven't been able to let out. Just let it all out. in the best way possible if you can.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's like kind of what we were talking in last podcast. It's like get dancing, get
Yeah.
it out of your body, get singing, get sounding, like get a drum and bang it, get your rattles and shake it. Like it's just like drumming is like really beautiful for releasing trauma, same as like shakers or rattles. Like it releases, that is really good actually for ancestral healing
Yeah.
and generational trauma. Like just get it out, sing and dance and just move it out. And if you intention it, it will happen and you'll feel better and you'll be aligned and you feel like you're actually doing deep work, not just for self, but for the whole. And that's all we need to do is just get it out, be creative, find our own ways, find the frequencies,
Yeah.
listen to binaural beats or whatever it is that you find, breath work, intention, breathing in the positive, breathing out the negative and what you're releasing, and just owning that and sitting in that, because it's not even a matter of time of like, well, we got to do the work. We have to do the work. And
Mhm.
you can't bypass it. There is no bypassing this, because frequency wise, the ones who just don't do the work and the ones that just keep eating shit and keep eating, like feeding themselves all these things, I'm like, it's going to be a difficult transition or it won't be a transition for you. I don't know where that looks like or what happens, but not everybody will make it through this frequency shift. And that is not a fear. This is just the
Yeah.
reality. So we have every ability to take control over what that looks like for us. And that's amazing when we have that power to be like, there's so much power in surrendering to the unknown, but being like, I'm okay with that. I'm
Yeah.
okay with not knowing because I'm solid and my
Totally.
family's solid and my friends are solid, and talk about it. I highly encourage everybody to talk about this in an intentional way, because there are people who will go down the fear road. So please be conscious of that when you do.
Yeah.
But and this is for the listeners, I know you already know this, but it really is like, talk about it, let people know there's nothing to fear here, because it's a natural element of, we will not have our cell phones, we will not have power, there will be this silence, this deafening silence, this stillness of darkness, and there's nothing else you can do but go inside. And with this solar flare coming down, like, I don't know if you're just going to get vaporized if you don't do that. I don't know. Like, I don't know how that works, but what I do know is what's left over after is high frequency alignment, and the beings who are here are coming from a space where they are co-creating the new way forward. And the
Hmm.
ones that are not coming from that space are just, there's no space here for them in this not advanced, I don't want to use advanced, this evolved reality in which we are
Yes.
naturally evolving to.
Hmm.
And it doesn't mean that if you aren't doing that or you don't give intention to that, that you're a bad person or it's a negative. You're just going to operate from a different timeline and move, forward in your involvement in a different way. And healing and involvement is not linear. We can go forward, we can go back, we can go sideways. And if that feels comfortable for you, then that is perfectly acceptable as well.
Yeah, totally. Oh, thank you so much, Lona. I really appreciate all of that information and I can't wait for more.
Thank you. Well, I can't wait to talk about it more. But I'm so, honestly, Sarah, I'm so glad we got this out today, because I know it's something we've been wanting to do for a while. And I'm just like, when's the right time? But like, my guides are like, no, like, now's the time. Like, we can feel it, we can see it. It's friggin' chaos around. So let's do it. Like, we're in this together. And if you need guidance, please connect. Please connect. Like, I am accessible, Sarah's accessible, and like, we're here to help serve and help you find the comfortable process that is there for you.
And it's okay to
Truly.
talk about your fears as well. It's okay to express them because then you can break them down and then you'll be able to, dissipate the fear scale, but, on a healthy level,
Absolutely.
like the healing tones.
Yes, the frequencies are so helpful. Like, even just putting them on before bed, or just any time in the bath, or just, while you're, having your morning coffee. Like, it doesn't even need to be intentional. It's just like the right frequency will find you. And you
Yeah.
can find, like, well, what mood I'm in. I'm in this mood. Like, just Google, what's a frequency for this? There's a frequency for everything. And even sometimes just put on a random frequency. That's what you need. Your
Yeah.
guidance will take you to what you need. It's the same with crystals. If you're in a crystal store and you just pick, like, That's an energy that you need. And we just need to start learning to trust our intuition, trust that process of self.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely beautiful. I love this. I'm so glad we got this out. Thanks for having me, Sarah.
Thanks for coming.
What a home hitting episode. Don't you think? How did it make you feel? What emotions came up for you, if any? Are you able to journal these thoughts and emotions down to navigate them better? Can you speak these feelings out in order to release them? Can you ask these feelings and emotions if they have a message for you? Write it all down, speak it all out, or reach out to someone close, a professional, or even us, so we can support each other through this. You're not alone. We're in this together. Thank you again for listening. From my heart to yours, take care.